Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. It is Flour It Up Friday and I've got a whole crazy collection of different things on my counter today. So I am going to be making two recipes. One calls for flour, the other one doesn't, but I make them together, so I'm going to show you the whole process. So what I'm making is chewy granola bars and breakfast or cereal bars, whatever you want to call them. We call them cereal bars, and they basically take sort of the same ingredients and we put just different things in them. So for the granola bars, I'm going to be using the mini chocolate chips. That's what I have here. I have some coconut. This is sweetened coconut, so I'm going to cut down on the sweetener in the granola bar. This is for the granola bar. And then I have my brown sugar, vanilla. I have salt. And for my cereal bars, it calls for wheat flour and white flour, but they're both wheat. It's just from a different part of the plant. They're both wheat, but this is all purpose. This is actual whole wheat flour. So I have to use both of those in the cereal bar. They both call for oats, so I have my oats. I've used quick oats and I've used old-fashioned oats, and I haven't really seen any different. Maybe in the baking time. It's kind of like baked oatmeal, pretty much, but just a few different ingredients. And I haven't seen any difference whether you're using quick oats or old-fashioned oats. They both call for old-fashioned oats, but this is what is in here, but I've used both either way interchangeably and they come out fine. One calls for lemon juice. They both call for honey. I have some honey, cornstarch. For the cereal bars, I'm going to be using a can of peaches, which I canned back in 2016, and as you can see, the top is rusty, but the seal is still good, and the fruit has browned a little bit, but it still tastes good. I'm going to put apricots in here. I actually have a mild reaction to apricots, eating them whole like this. So I'm going to chop them up and put them in the cereal bars and see how I tolerate them. If not, everybody else will eat them up, and nobody else has a problem with apricots, just me. And it just seems to have come on just recently. I don't know if something I've developed over the last, say, couple of months or so, but I can't eat them just straight out of the bag anymore. And then I pulled out of my freezer, I have some pear crisp filling here, or pie filling, that I froze because I made too much for the last crisp I made. So I'm going to use that up, get that defrosted. I have a couple of sticks of butters that it needs, and we are going to get on with this. I will put the recipe down the bottom of in the description box, and if you want to make it, you can just follow along. I am making a slightly bigger batch because the pans I use are bigger than what is recommended, and for my family, I mean, if I was to use a smaller pan, then it would be gone in a day. So I would rather make a bigger batch and have it last a couple of days or at least a week. And I usually do this for lunches, to put on our lunch, and then during the summer just for a snack, something a little bit healthier than, say, ice creams and all that kind of stuff. But even though we have ice creams every now and then, I want something a little healthier, and this is what I'm going to do. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is preheat my oven, and then I'm going to start my compote, which is basically just thickening up your fruits with a little bit of lemon juice and a little bit of sweetener. It's basically nothing to it. Just putting in, this is the pie filling that I had, and I'm going to add in my peaches, which I just broke up a little bit, right in, and I didn't do such a good job at the bottom. And I'm probably going to use my immersion blender afterwards, and I'm going to put in the apricots that I chopped up a little bit. And I usually sweeten this with some sugar or a little bit of honey, but today I'm not going to do that because I'm using that juice off of the peaches, and that's a simple syrup, so that'd be sweet enough. And just a little bit of lemon juice, bring it to a boil, thicken it up, and that's one other thing for your compote. You want to use a thickener, which is cornstarch. So while my compote is simmering on the stovetop, I'm going to toast my oats for my granola bars. And if you want to add any walnuts or any kind of nuts in here, this is where you would put them, so you can toast them along with your oats as well. You're going to toast it for 5 minutes, kind of turn it, and then toast it for another 5 to 10 minutes in the oven. So that's what I'm going to do. So while my oats are toasting in this bowl, I'm going to get started on my cereal bars, and I'm going to measure in what I need for my cereal bars, and I will put the recipe, I've said that already, I'm sure I have in the description box below if you want to try this out for yourself. So in goes my oats. My all-purpose flour. And I like this recipe because it kind of uses up the same ingredients across the two recipes. I'm just trying to read my recipe, make sure everything gets in. Here's my whole wheat flour, and I like this because it uses up my whole wheat flour. I'm starting to use it in my bread as well, so we're gonna see how that goes. Okay, so I've got my flour, my oats, I've got my brown sugar, and I've got a little bit of salt. It calls for ginger, but I don't have any ginger open. I'm gonna use cinnamon. That's what I'm gonna use. You can use ginger. That's what the recipe calls for. I don't have any, but it should be fine. I've always used ginger. I just don't want to go pull it out. It's in my long-term storage, and I just don't want to pull it out. Okay. That was just a timer to toss my oats that are in the oven. I'm still waiting for it to come up to temp, so it's in for the second 5 to 10 minutes. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to get this finished. And my compote, I just put it in the back burner. It had already bubbled and everything. And it's just cooling a little bit. It doesn't really need to because it's going to go in the oven to bake, but you can cool it a little bit. Okay, and the last ingredient to go in is the melted butter. This almost reminds me of my crisp topping recipe. That's basically what it is, even though I don't use the whole wheat in it, but maybe I should start. So I'm going in with my melted butter, and we're just going to mix it in. And my oven hasn't even come up to temp yet, and this is pretty much done. I'm just going to mix this in, and it's ready to go. And here is my toasted oats. I'm just going to leave them off to the side to cool while I make the cereal bars. Okay, you want to thoroughly incorporate your butter because that's going to be one of your binders. So I made sure everything up from the bottom was coated in your melted butter. So this is the pan I'm going to be using. It's a 9x13 and it's shallower than my other 9x13s. And some people grease them, some people don't. I just use the butter paper and just grease it that way. It's not a whole lot of greasing, and yeah, it seems to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 2/3 of the oatmeal mixture in the bottom and pack it down tightly. Now that I've got my bottom layer packed tightly, this is what my compote looks like. It's cooled, and I'm just going to spoon it over the top of it. So now that I've got my filling in, I'm going to spoon the rest of this over the top, and then I'm going to pack it down like this. Pack it down as tightly as I can get it, and I'm using just the back of if you have a glass or whatever, or a spoon, this is just the back of the measuring cup. I did go back in, and with the back of my spoon, I just tapped it down a little bit more because I could get closer to the edges with the spoon. So I'm going to bake this at 375 for about 45 minutes or until the top is browned. And my oven just came up to temp, so I'm going to put this in the oven. In the oven it goes for 45 minutes. Okay, so this is the same bowl I just had my cereal bar mixture in. I'm putting my oats in here because I want them cool down even more, because I don't want my chocolate chips when I put them in to here to melt. So I'm just going to put them in here, let them cool down even more, and while I get the binder together. Okay, so I'm doing my binder for the granola bars, and it calls for a 1/4 cup of butter. I'm just putting it right in. We're gonna melt that. And yes, this is the same pot that I just had my fruit compote in, and it's basically the same things. I'm putting in, it calls for light brown sugar. I don't have any light brown sugar left. I used the last bit of the one I had open in the cereal bars, so I'm using dark brown sugar. I don't think it's gonna make a difference. I guess the bars will be just a little bit different, a little bit darker. So I've put in my butter, my salt, my sugar, and I'm going to put in a little bit of cinnamon. Now this, you can do, this is really, really flexible. You can do it however you want. And I'm also going to put in my honey, and we're going to melt this and bring it, if I can get this honey open. Well, I'm going to put honey in there and some vanilla. So in goes my honey, and it is freezing here today, so it's running a little slow. And you can omit, or, well, I wouldn't say omit, don't omit, because this is what holds your bars together. You can use less of it, but don't omit it, because this is gonna be what holds your bars together. So I'm gonna get this on the heat and bring this to a simmer, not necessarily a boil, get that butter melted, and I'm going to go to the next one. Okay, so here's the binder for my granola bars. As you can see, it's bubbling a little bit, and all I want to do is melt the sugar, basically. Melt the butter, melt the sugar, make sure that's melted and no big lumps of sugar anywhere. So this is now set, and I'm going to take it off the burner and let it cool a little bit before I add it to my oats. Okay, so my oats are pretty well cooled down, so I'm going to add my binder here, and that's just the honey, the butter, and the brown sugar, the vanilla, and the salt. So I'm going to add that in, and I'm doing a little bigger batch than the recipe calls for, but because I'm using a bigger pan than the recipe calls for. Okay, I've got my oats pretty much coated in the binder, and now I'm gonna add in my mini chocolate chips, and it's cool enough that they shouldn't melt any, which is good. And then I also toasted up some coconut, and I'm gonna add that in as well. My binder was still too warm for those mini chocolate chips, so I've gone ahead and added about a quarter cup of regular chocolate chips. Those mini chocolate chips actually have melted right in. They have disappeared. So it's a little chocolatier than I had anticipated. But that's okay. We like chocolate. So got everything mixed in, and I'm going in with my 9x13 pan. For this one, I do line it with parchment paper. I've lined it with parchment paper and done sort of like a sling so I can pull it out. This is going to go in the fridge overnight, but I just want to make sure I can pull it out. And I'm going to spoon everything in here, and then I'm going to press it down. Pack it down as tightly as you can get it. Okay, so I've got them flattened out as best as I can. I started off with the silicone spoon, then I moved to this, and then eventually I just moved to my hand. I guess you can do it with your bare hand. I like to use a glove, and I just wet my hand or my glove and just pressed it down. That seemed to have worked the best. So I just pressed it down as firmly as you can get it, and it's going to go into the fridge. I'm going to cover it, go into the fridge overnight, and we're going to cut it tomorrow. Okay, here is my cereal bar out of the oven. It's nice and brown on the top. You want to let it cool 100% before you cut into it. That will happen to set. I mean, unless you want to do it like a cobbler or like a what is that? A crisp. There you go. Then let it cool 100% so it holds together. And I'm probably gonna let this sit overnight and cut it with the other one that I have in the fridge, the chewy granola bars. So that's what it looks like out of the oven. And I'm just going to let it cool. Okay, so here they are. This is the granola bar. This is the one with the chocolate chips and the toasted coconut. And this one is the cereal bar. They are obviously cooled and set. And I'm going to cut them. I'm probably going to... Oh yeah, I'm just going to cut them. What I do is cut them depending on how big you like them. I could probably get... I think about 16 out of them, depending on how big or how small I cut them. And then I just put them in sandwich bags and store them in the fridge. That's how we do them. And within the week or so, they're gone. So they don't stick around too long. Okay, so up first is the cereal bar. No, the granola bar. And this sling really helps to just pull the whole thing out. And I'm just going to cut a few of these. I'm not going to bore you with cutting the whole thing. But basically, if you can see what I'm doing. Turn this around here, and basically, yeah, sorry about the lighting. The it's morning and the sun is directly behind me in that window. So I'm just going to, hopefully you can see what I'm doing. I'm just cutting them. They are quite firm, as you can tell. But we like sort of like a square, but you can do square, rectangles, you know, whatever kind you like. So I'm just gonna cut a little piece so I can show you. So depending on how big or small you make, or how thick or not thick you make them. This is how thick. Can you see that? Can you even see? Okay, kind of. I'm sorry about the lighting, guys, but this is what they look like. This is the edge, so they're a little thinner than the middle portion would be. So I'm gonna cut the cereal bar now. Okay, so this is the cereal bar. I got the lighting to cooperate. I just basically closed the blind. That's it. Maybe I should have thought of that ahead of time. But I'm gonna cut this the same way I cut the granola bars. I got, I think it was 16 or so out of that. And yeah, I'm gonna cut it the same way. So it almost feels like a crisp. It is. I did put this in the fridge. It didn't really need it, but I did put it in the fridge. So it's a lot firmer than it would normally be. Cut this. Don't look at my knife skills. I'm not really allowed to use knives because I always cut myself. But I'm going to get the spatula so I can get it out of here. Okay, once you cut whatever squares you like to cut, I run around the sides just to loosen everything up. Just run along the sides just so I'm not breaking it up as I pull it out. And that just helps it to release. And I'm just trying, what is this, a spatula, right? And of course I didn't cut it all the way. Poor me. So that's what they look like. They're not the prettiest, but they taste delicious and they're a lot healthier than what I was buying in the stores or any other junk food. And all I'm doing to store these is just put them in these folding sandwich bags. And I put them in a container and put it in the fridge, and I'll show you that. And you see how they're, I guess I could have used a little bit more butter and they would have stuck a little bit better. Or if I was able to push them down even further. That's how they look in the bag. But this is not going to go to waste. This right here, all these crumbs, if you can see that, I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it in the fridge and I'm going to use it on top of our yogurt. That's what we're going to use this. This is not going to go into the trash. I'm going to use this on the top of our yogurt. Okay, so this is the chewy granola bar that I showed you earlier. I took a piece and it tastes delicious. I don't know if you can see the coconut. There's a piece right there. And they are chewy. They're not a hard one. I actually started making these when our favorite one, and I won't mention the brand, had a very, I'll say, not so nice ingredient in it that could literally kill you, but it was safe enough to eat. I don't know how that is, but anyway, we'll move on. This is the topping that I got off of the crumbs of the cereal bars. And here is my yogurt, homemade yogurt. It is, I'm telling you, this is the easiest recipe I've ever found. And I'm just gonna have that for breakfast. I'll probably put some berries on the side. And this is how I store them. I got 15 of each. I got 15 of the granola bars. And I got 15 of the cereal bars. And I'll just put them, a top on them and put them in the fridge. And I'll store them in the fridge until we eat them up, and then I'll just remake it. Now, I didn't test, sorry, I'm still chewing the coconut. I didn't test the cereal bars because they have the apricots in them, and I'm home alone at the moment, and I don't want anything to happen while I'm home by myself. So, I'm going to save them for when the family comes, and I could try it then. But I'm sure they'll be delicious. I made apple before. I made just straight peach. I've made just straight pear before. I've done blueberry. What else have I done? All kinds of different fruits. I've done mixed berry as well. But this has apricots in it, and because I'm a little allergic to apricots, I'm going to wait on that. But I'm sure it will taste delicious. So that is my Flour It Up for this Friday. So I just want to say, these Pyrex dishes, these 9x13s, they're shallower than my regular 9x13 pan, but they're perfect for this sort of thing, brownies. And I got these from the flea market. Don't sleep on your flea markets, guys. You can find great things there. And actually, these were free. I actually went there just before, about 2 hours before they were closing, and this vendor was leaving for the day, and they put out a whole pile of stuff that was free for the taking, and these two happened to be in there. And I'm thinking maybe because they were scratched or they didn't look brand new or whatever, and at the time, I probably a couple of years back wouldn't have picked them up either, because I'm thinking somebody already used them, and do I really want to use something that's already been used by somebody and I don't know how they care for it or whatever? But I was thinking, we eat out in restaurants all the time, and we're putting those utensils in our mouth of people in the back that have washed them and done hopefully nothing to them. But I was thinking that, I'm like, yeah, I can take these home and wash them myself, and I know how they were clean. I can sanitize them and everything else, get them nice and pristine, and then I can use them. And for free, I couldn't go wrong. So yeah, if you're at the flea market and you see some of these old Pyrex, and they're heavy duty, not like the one I broke was nice and heavy. The one I just got recently, probably about 3 years ago now, it is not as heavy duty as my old one was, or these. So if you have a chance to pick these up at your flea market, don't hesitate. The nice heavy duty older ones are really good to have in your case that you're doing something like this.
Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and click that notification bell to be notified when I upload videos. God bless, and remember, stay safe and keep prepping.